Hi, James.
Hello.
Yeah, so I just want to answer your question of whether the numbers do matter, and I'll just say yes, the numbers do matter. Now, for context, I have to say that I guess I would fall in the camp that you've described of people who subscribe to quote unquote right-wing media.
Sure.
I share the same sentiments and views as the ones that you're demonizing, for lack of a better word. But yeah,
I don't want to jump all over you. No, I don't want to jump all over you. But just give me a little bit more flesh on those bones, if you would. What sort of sentiments and views?
There are few political talking points more powerful or more emotionally charged than immigration. Because once people start believing that every problem in the country somehow traces back to one issue, that belief becomes incredibly difficult to challenge. Long hospital waits, immigration, struggling public services, immigration, jobs feeling harder to find, again, immigration. And the reason this rhetoric is so powerful is because it doesn't just stay within one political group. Over time, it spreads, it gets repeated, it becomes part of everyday conversation. Eventually, people from all backgrounds, even people directly affected by the argument itself, can start repeating the exact same messaging. And that brings us to today's video. Because what you're about to watch is honestly one of the most fascinating examples of this phenomenon playing out in real time. A caller named Nathan phones into LBC, ready to argue that immigration is damaging Britain and putting huge pressure on the NHS. Pretty standard political debate so far, right? Well, not exactly. Because there's one detail that changes everything. Nathan is an immigrant himself. Yes, you heard that right. An immigrant calling into a national radio show to argue against immigration, repeating many of the same talking points that are often used to criticize people exactly like him. And what starts as a confident argument slowly turns into something very different once the questions start getting harder. Because James O'Brien doesn't shout, he doesn't grandstand. He simply starts asking questions. Questions that slowly force the argument to confront facts, contradictions, and something a lot more uncomfortable than political slogans: reality. And trust me, the way this conversation ends is probably not how Nathan expected it to go. But before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Also, hit that notification bell so you never miss a future upload, because we've got a lot more political moments like this coming your way. Now, let's watch this together, and once it's over, I'll give you my full thoughts on what really happened here.
Hi, James.
Hello.
Yeah, so I just want to answer your question of whether the numbers do matter, and I want to say yes, the numbers do matter. Now, for context, I have to say that I guess I would fall in the camp that you've described of people who subscribe to quote unquote right-wing media.
Sure.
I share the same sentiments and views as the ones that you're demonizing, for lack of a better word. I don't want
to jump all over you. No, I don't want to jump all over you. But just give me a little bit more flesh on those bones, if you would. What sort of sentiments and views?
Well, I mean, the conversation for today is about immigration, and you describe the people who, I guess, view immigration as a big issue and something to be sorted, and I guess, in your words, sort of blow it out of proportion. But I sort of agree with a lot of that rhetoric. And to come back to your question, of course, the numbers do matter. Now, I wasn't a fan of the Labour government. I wasn't happy that they got in power. But when I heard the news about the numbers that you've spoken about, yes, that did put a pep in my step. I was like, oh, okay, this could actually be a good thing. So ultimately, for me, it's about the impact that's happening as a result of that government. So if they get this right, if it improves the country, I think that's a good thing. And
what would we be looking for in the context of improvement?
So in terms of to answer that question, let me just emphasize on the numbers. It's great that the numbers are coming down, but at the end of the day, it's about the lived experience of the people in the country.
Yes.
So the reason that people pick up on immigration is because immigration puts pressures on services on the country. So healthcare, education, community services and stuff like that. So the more people there are, the more those services are under pressure, and people feel that. Jobs are harder to get. When you go to the A&E, you wait for 5 hours. I was there a couple of weeks ago because my wife was unfortunately very, very unwell. We got there, and they told us we had to wait for about 6 hours. It's those kind of.
And in those circumstances, you immediately think of immigration.
No. I don't immediately think of immigration, but it's a factor that I can't ignore. Because
14 years of austerity. In the year 2010, patient satisfaction with the NHS was the highest it had ever been.
No,
that was after 13 years of high immigration under Labour. So why do you think of immigration when you're presented with a long wait at a hospital?
No. So that's fair enough. And this is my point.
To add another point, if I may, the net contribution to the public purse of a working age immigrant is higher than a working age native. So in terms of what goes in and what gets taken out, they're a net benefit to public services, and yet in your mind they're a drain. Why do you think that is? Because, I mean, respectfully, you're wrong. So why do you think you've ended up being wrong about this?
No. Well, I mean, fair enough. Respectively, I think you're wrong, but it doesn't matter. We'll just have a
this isn't an opinion. This is counting. You go to a hospital and there's a long waiting list. You immediately think it's because of immigration. I just wonder why.
No. I didn't say that. And this is the thing, James.
You did, mate.
No. I think
you told me about your wife, who I hope is well and was as well treated, and you talked about the lived experience of people and believing that immigration was the reason why you had such a long wait to the hospital. I mean, you can tell me that you made a mistake when you said that, but you can't pretend you didn't say it.
Let me explain. It was a mistake. From what you're saying, I'm hearing that you misunderstood me. So let me clarify.
Of course.
Okay. What I'm saying is, the fact of the matter is, if there is 1 million more people in the country, those 1 million more people need to use the same services that were there before they arrived in the country. So if I have a hospital in Wolverhampton, this is where I live, there's that hospital. If 500,000 more people come to Wolverhampton, it's the same hospital, James.
And are they? But then we look at the age. We look at the age demographics. We look at the staffing of the hospital. We look at who is most likely to need care in the health sector and who is most likely to provide it demographically. And you come away with a fairly powerful argument for immigration, not against it. And you can't really gloss over the fact that patient satisfaction under the last Labour government up to 2010 was the highest it has ever been. So why? If there were hundreds of thousands of people coming into the country during that period, was patient satisfaction the highest it's ever been? Millions of people.
Because, okay, and this goes back to your central question that you asked at the beginning. So let me answer your question, if you just let me answer the question.
Well, I wish you'd answer one of them.
It's great the numbers are coming down, but it's not about the numbers, James. It's about the lived experience of people in this country.
So the lived experience of people in this country in 2010 was that after incredibly high, historically unprecedented levels of immigration, the experience of the NHS was the highest it had ever been. So your point just doesn't work.
No. Let me make it first, James, and then you can tell me whether it doesn't work. My point is, even if immigration numbers were going up right now, even if immigration numbers were 1.2, 1.3, but the lived experience of the people in this country was getting better. If we could all look at each other and say, you know what, England is getting better, this wouldn't be a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you might be right about that, but that's why I always ask for examples, and I know how annoying it can be, and in many ways you're demonstrating why some people do find it so annoying. But, there it is. The problems that the NHS face are not directly linked to immigration levels, because when immigration levels were high enough to essentially start the entire Brexit ball rolling, patient satisfaction with the NHS was the highest it has ever been. And listen, this is a bit of a trick question, Nathan, but how many of the people that looked after your wife at the hospital in Wolverhampton do you think were immigrants?
When we were there, we saw about 4 different people, and I think 2 of them were foreigners and 2 of them were British.
Okay. So that would be 50%.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope she was well looked after, and I hope she makes a full and speedy recovery. And I hope the 2 people who were born somewhere else who treated her aren't listening, Nathan, because what do you think they'll feel hearing you today?
Well, I mean, for further context,
just answer that. Come on, you keep complaining.
I'm actually an immigrant myself.
No, I realise that. I thought you might be, but in terms of how those healthcare workers feel to hear you saying...
Well, no, to hear me say what, though, James? I didn't say anything.
That immigration is the reason why the NHS can't provide the services that those people would like to.
And listen, it's your show. You can do whatever you want.
I have listened. I've listened a lot, Nathan.
I think the issue...
And as I say, I hope your wife has a full and speedy recovery, despite having to endure the ministrations of fellow immigrants.
So... what exactly did we just witness there? Because this wasn't just a debate about immigration. It was a perfect example of how political messaging can shape the way people see problems, even when the facts tell a different story. Nathan's argument was simple. The NHS is struggling. Therefore, immigration must be part of the problem. It's a connection many people make emotionally. But James pushed back with one uncomfortable fact. In 2010, after years of historically high immigration, NHS patient satisfaction was actually at its highest. And then came the moment that changed everything. James asked Nathan how many of the people who treated his wife at the hospital were immigrants. Nathan admitted it was around half. The same people he believed were adding pressure to the system were also helping keep it running. And then came the final twist. Nathan revealed he's an immigrant himself. That's what made this call so revealing. Because sometimes political narratives become so powerful that people repeat them without fully questioning whether they actually match reality or even their own personal experience. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more.